I attended public school starting in 1956 until I graduated from high school in June of 1969. During that time period, and for a long time afterward, civics courses were taught in what seemed like a very practical manner. How do elections work? How do bills become law? What's the proper division of authority between the federal government and the 50 states? And there was always an implication that such lessons were designed to help us do our duties as good citizens. Specifically, teachers would tell us that we needed to know these things in order to keep our freedom, and that participation in civic and political life was essential to the protection of our rights.
When in the cause is in the best, it becomes necessary.
Hi, I'm Mike Farris. Welcome to our journey on American Civics. There will be a heavy emphasis on constitutional issues, which is to be expected given my background. I've been practicing constitutional law since 1976. I was the founding president of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, where I litigated for over 3 decades. In 2000, I founded Patrick Henry College, where I taught constitutional law for 17 years. And I recently retired from 6 years as CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom, the world's largest Christian legal group fighting for constitutional liberties. I've had the privilege of arguing many constitutional cases in state and federal courts, including 2 victories in the United States Supreme Court. I've worked in Congress and state legislatures, and I ran for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. And I will bring all this background into this course. The whole system of civic instructions was implicitly built on a set of assumptions and beliefs shared by almost all Americans. With very, very few exceptions, the people of this country believed some core principles. We believed that the United States of America was a great nation, not perfect, but good and decent and honorable, and striving to improve in every aspect of these virtues. We believed that freedom was very important and worth fighting for. We believe that government should protect our constitutional rights listed in the Bill of Rights. We believe that free enterprise was good for our nation and our future, and that socialism was a dangerous idea. We all agreed with the key phrase in the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal, but there was a growing belief that more had to be done to promote and ensure racial equality, and that this phrase from the Declaration should be more than a slogan, but instead should be the day-to-day reality for all Americans.
Negroes want the same things that white citizens possess. All of their rights. They want no reservations. They want complete equality. Social, economic, and political.
By the time I graduated from law school in 1976, exactly 200 years after the Declaration of Independence, the vast majority of Americans embraced the ideal boldly proclaimed in the Pledge of Allegiance: liberty and justice should be for all. Such beliefs were so common and so readily assumed, most civics courses in my youth didn't spend a lot of time on these underlying principles. They were taken for granted, and we were taught civics with the goal of giving us the practical knowledge that was designed to help us defend our freedom, our Constitution, and the American way of life.
Let our recent mistakes bring a resurgent commitment to the basic principles of our nation. For we know that if we despise our own government, we have no future.
Now, more than 50 years after I graduated from high school, it's pretty clear that we live in a very different day. Take the issue of socialism versus free enterprise. I doubt that a single member of my high school graduating class would have said that they believed that socialism was a good idea. And we were in a community that was pretty equally divided between Republicans and Democrats. No one wanted socialism. There was no partisan divide on that issue. The political parties didn't agree on many things, but the idea of embracing socialism was viewed as clearly un-American in nature. In the fall of 2022, the Pew Research Organization revealed that only 57% of American adults viewed capitalism, which is another name for free enterprise, in a positive or somewhat positive manner. And 36% of all American adults viewed socialism as positive or somewhat positive. This poll revealed that there were differences of opinion regarding the desirability of socialism based on gender, level of education, family income, and race. But one of the starkest contrasts was by age. Among people my age, that's over 65, free enterprise was viewed positively by 73% of the population, while 28% had a positive view of socialism. But the poll results show a steady increase in support for socialism in each of the succeeding younger age groups. For example, those between 50 and 64 had a 62% to 32% favorable view of capitalism over socialism, and those between 30 and 49 viewed capitalism more favorably, 53% to 40%. But among those aged 18 to 29, socialism was viewed more favorably, 44% to 40%. It's not just support for economic freedom that's declined over the years. A 2022 survey by the Buckley Foundation revealed some very disturbing views about freedom of speech among college students. While 80% of college students say they believe the First Amendment is an important amendment, they show very little support for the First Amendment in practice. For the first time in history, a plurality of college students reject the idea that hate speech is protected by the Constitution, 48% to 44%. It's important to unpack the idea of hate speech and understand why these numbers matter. In 1977, a Nazi leader in Illinois called the American Civil Liberties Union asking for their legal help. He wanted the ACLU to represent this Nazi group, which had been denied a parade permit by a local community. By anyone's definition, the Nazi message is hate speech. They promote religious hatred, they promote racial hatred, and more. But the ACLU, this noted left-wing organization, defended the Nazis because they understood that free speech needed to be protected for all people and all messages. If the government can ban one group's speech because they don't like your message, then no one's freedom to speak is truly safe. And the Supreme Court of the United States agreed with the ACLU and protected the right of the Nazi group to deliver their hate-filled message. Now, it caused some rumbling, but the vast majority of Americans agreed, maybe a little reluctantly, but they agreed. Free speech had to be for everyone, or no one's rights would be protected. There's always been a different rule in cases where there's calls for violence. If someone tries to incite a crowd to commit acts of violence for racial reasons or for religious reasons or really any reason, that kind of speech was not protected because inciting violence is not and never has been seen as constitutionally protected. This survey of college students reveals that 48% of current students think the ACLU and the Supreme Court of the United States were wrong. They don't agree. All speech, they think, should not be protected. Messages that the majority doesn't like can be labeled as hate speech and punished by the government, and not merely extreme examples like Nazi parades. Facebook posts that say that transgendered males should not be allowed to play in girls' sports competition has been labeled as hate speech in many instances, and people have lost their jobs and have been deplatformed for saying something this simple and something that was unquestioned just a few years ago. Now, in this same survey, 41% said that using violence to stop people from delivering an offensive speech was justified. Now, let's translate that into reality. If someone says only biological girls should play girls' sports, just express that opinion. 41% of college students think it's okay to attack that person with physical violence to get them to stop saying such things. Free speech cases often involve efforts to punish someone for what they have said. But there's a second kind of case, coerced speech. This is where the government seeks to force you to say something you don't want to say. I argued and won a case in the Supreme Court of the United States in 2018 on the issue of coerced speech. The state of California was trying to force pro-life pregnancy centers to give a pro-abortion message to all the clients coming into their centers. The Supreme Court ruled in the favor of my clients 5-4, holding that it's unconstitutional to force someone to deliver a message that they don't agree with. Yet, 67% of college students today say that their college or university should require all professors to make statements in favor of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a clear violation of the constitutional principle that prohibits coerced speech of any kind. In a later lesson, we will go even deeper into freedom of speech. For now, I'm using it as an example of shifting attitudes about our freedoms. Now, here's my point. We can no longer teach what could be called the mechanical side of civics with the assumption that most students, or even most adults, agree with ideals like freedom, self-government, free enterprise, or even love for country. Yeah, it's important to understand how government works and how every individual can have an impact. But we also have to present a defense of the ideals upon which this country was founded. And such a defense can't just be a bunch of conclusions that assume the rightness of those ideals. The defense has to be fair-minded and treat the appeal of contrary ideals with seriousness and real analysis. We have to consider the consequences and impact that each of these sets of ideals will have upon each person and upon our society as a whole. I don't want anyone to be misled into thinking that I'm going to present both sides as equally valid choices. Some people, some teachers in particular, pretend to do that, but almost everyone has a position they're actually promoting. I believe it's far more trustworthy when a teacher acknowledges up front that they've chosen a particular viewpoint. And then, having stated their viewpoint, they prove by their method of presenting facts and views and proofs that they've thought seriously about both sides and are presenting their arguments in a thoughtful and reasonable manner. If you're looking for conservative propaganda, well, this series isn't for you. But if you're looking for a fair-minded review of the ideals that were the motivation for this country, and a respectful argument that these ideals are worth preserving and offer us the best future for our country, then you've come to the right place. So, this series will be a mixture of two major streams of information. First, we'll be talking about a set of principles and ideals that were important to the beginnings of this country, and we will evaluate whether these ideals and beliefs are still valid in the 21st century. Second, we'll also be talking about how our civil and political institutions work and how you can have an impact for good within these institutions and our culture. But I want to begin by addressing a really important question. Many today claim that our institutions, starting with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, are racist and discriminatory and have been so from the beginning of our nation. And such people claim that the only moral approach to our political life is to tear up all our foundations and start over. If these voices are right, learning civics really doesn't make a lot of sense. So the next lesson is going to take this issue head on. Was America founded in racism and marred with other patterns of discrimination from the beginning? Do we need to throw it all out and start over? Let's find out. See you soon.